So I am going to hand you over to Kirstie Macleod, who is the facilitator of the red dress. I know we've had lots of conversations about, are you the artist, the creator of such a collaborative project? Because it is such an incredible undertaking in terms of the red dress. So if you want to give us about an hour's talk about how this has come to be, your journey, the dresser's journey, and then we're going to open up for about 10 minutes of questions, if that's all right. If you
Absolutely.
haven't popped yourself, closed your camera, I might just go into the back and close people's cameras and make sure they're on mute so that we haven't got any distractions as well. Great. I'm going to hand over to Kirstie.
Thank you, Nat. Hi, everyone. I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to connect with you all this evening and share a little bit about the red dresses and my journey. So thrilled that the dress is taking part in Woven's Festival this month. It was a joy to install and spend a few days with the team. And I've had the most incredible feedback about the exhibition and about all the incredible things going on in and around Kirklees, definitely bringing communities together. So yeah, I'll be sharing a little bit about the dress, what came before, how it came into creation, introduce you to some of the remarkable embroiderers, and talk to you a little bit about the book that's just been released and future dreams and ambitions. So I have a PowerPoint presentation. So I'm just going to get in to share that now. Okay, so hopefully you can continue to share. Hopefully you can all see that. Yeah, so the final stats for the red dress is that it involves the work and stitches of 380 different embroiderers from 51 countries over a 14-year period of time. So it began in 2009, and it really was this very small idea initially. And I didn't know whether people would be interested to take part, and I didn't know whether I could facilitate such a project, but I had the dream and I had the vision and the determination. And then little by little, the project grew and grew and grew. But I mean, really, the first 10, 11 years were extremely difficult. No money really came in until 2020. So I think that's 11 years into the project. So it was a passion project, really. It was something I did alongside being a mum and working. And then in 2020, full-time job, which I feel very, very blessed to be able to do. It's an incredible privilege to do this work, definitely. This is Diana Milstein. She is a Somerset embroiderer. She created a really lovely violin on the dress in 2020. And then the following year, I organized a photo shoot of some of the embroiderers wearing the dress in the UK. And I asked Diana whether she'd like to wear the dress, and she said, yes, yes, definitely. And then for the kind of week after, I was getting all these messages, and she was really anxious and worried that the dress wouldn't fit her and she wouldn't look good in it. You know, you can imagine the kind of conversations that we have. This is the moment. I just had finished doing up the buttons on the bodice, and I just stepped back. And she just stood in this position like this. And I was completely kind of awestruck at this vision. The photographer burst into tears, and everyone around the room just was completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. It's a beautiful experience to witness a woman wearing the dress. And each time that person's personality and wisdom and experience and you know, happiness and joys and traumas and everything is all very much imbued into the fabric. This was a very special moment, and I always like to begin my presentation with this image of Diana. On the left here, we have Sharmin Fake Sadiq from Iraq. She's supported in Swansea by the Swansea Women's Asylum and Refugee Support Group. We did an event in 2022, and afterwards, after she'd created a bit of embroidery onto the dress, I asked if she wanted to wear the garment, and she absolutely loved the experience so much. And it took me about an hour to then get the dress off her. I was a bit worried about, you know, obviously conservation and things, but she just was in her element, and she still says to me that it was the happiest day of her life. On the right here, we have Saranda Bobietzki, who is the Deputy Head of Parliament in Kosovo. So when I was in Kosovo, connecting with Faride and Fatim Halili, the two sister stitch artisans who stitched the Birds of Peace embroidery, which you can actually see on the dress at the bottom. It's the white doves. They just stitched in white. And we were in Kosovo doing an exhibition and various projects and outreach. And Saranda heard about the dress. And especially interesting was that she originally came from the same town, Podiev, that the two embroiderers are also living in, are from. So she asked if I could come and meet her and bring the dress. And it was an extraordinary experience. And I was told her story before meeting her, which is remarkable. At the age of 12, she was involved in a massacre that killed most of her family. This is with the war with Serbia. I think it was 15 members of her family were killed in the garden of their house. And she was left for dead, and she'd taken 16 bullets to her own 12-year-old body. She was luckily found by a Serbian medic, taken to a Serbian hospital, and sadly wasn't really looked after. She was kind of left in a corner. And brilliantly, a photographer from the UK was documenting the war and found her, and long story short, managed to get her airlifted to Manchester to recuperate and recover in a specialist hospital for bullet wounds. Her father and cousin, the only remaining members of her family, were also flown to the UK, and that's where they've stayed, went to school and university. But Saranda is now back in Kosovo, Deputy Head of Parliament, and a hugely empowered figure, and is not only the most incredible role model of strength and resilience for the women of the country, but also for the men. And she's, making lots of very important changes. So the idea of the red dress, people always ask me this question, is why did you create it? And it very simply is, it was a dream I had to try and create a piece of work that would bring people together rather than separating people out. A piece of work that would be completely away from any hierarchies and any prejudice and any oppression, and would be an equal playing field for all voices to be shared. It was very, very important to me. It brought together everything that really mattered at the time. And although at the beginning it was pretty slow, I do now feel that has been realized. I do feel that it has brought people together, and I do feel that it has created this united platform for stories, but also this beautiful dialogue of unity and of hope and of peace. Oh, this was a beautiful moment. This is Hilaria Lopez Patistan. She created the panel on the right in 2018. And it's very specific to San Juan Chamula, where Hilaria lives, which is a very insular Tzotzil town. They speak a Mayan dialect. Tzotzil is the Mayan dialect that they speak. And 2 years later, as part of a crowdfunded trip, I was able to go back to Mexico, because I hadn't met her before, to meet Hilaria and the other Mexican embroiderer, and to talk about her embroidery, but importantly, to show her the dress, and also to meet and understand her and her family and her way of living in life. And after we'd had this lovely time of connection and stitching onto the dress, I asked if she wanted to wear the dress. And she was so shy, bless her. But it was this beautiful moment. And she looked so empowered and so strong. And it was, you can see the hillside behind just tumbling down. Absolutely magical. So what is the red dress? It is a conversation I could have for probably days. But if I really hone it down to the very important 4 key points about the project, it is a dialogue of diverse cultures and identity. And it unites individuals from around the world without borders and boundaries. So this is the core aim, the initial intention. But after a few years, when momentum was beginning to grow, I realized that the red dress had the potential to be a platform for women's voices to be, predominantly women's, to be amplified and heard. And that's when the magic really started to happen. I then began to steer the project towards initiatives and charities that use embroidery as a way of helping women to better their lives, as a healing modality, as a way of earning a living. And also directed it to initiatives where there was an important subject that needed to be shared. So the dress could then shine a light on it and help to amplify those important messages. And then, of course, it is a celebration of the universal language of embroidery. I love embroidery. I always have, and I love how accessible it is, and I love the slowness of it. So much of life, and very much in my world, everything is fast, everything is quick. With embroidery, you don't have that option. You have to slow down. You have to be intentional. You know, every stitch is important, every stitch matters, and every stitch has that particular intention and placement and voice. So it was the obvious choice for me when I was thinking about this project, is what would be the medium of expression. It was very, very quickly, yeah, it has to be embroidery. And the fact that it is practiced all over the world and has been for thousands of years. Sadly, in this country, I'd say before the pandemic, it was kind of waning. Embroidery was waning, and there were 3 BA courses when I was a student. Now, sadly, there is only one. I think you can do something online, but that's different. I would say that the pandemic has definitely caused a bit of a resurgence, which is brilliant, not just embroidery, but with craft as a whole. People are really keen now to make and to connect. So hopefully that will continue, and we'll be able to, really kind of immerse ourselves culturally in embroidery, like so many other cultures do. So what came before? I grew up all over the world. So I was born in Venezuela, and then we moved to Barbados, Nigeria, Japan, Holland, Canada. Came back to boarding school with my 2 sisters, aged about 10. So that's my accent. So although I appear English and look English, I kind of don't really feel like I belong anywhere. I feel like I'm very much someone of the world, and all the different cultures and experiences and languages and traditions and colors and ceremonies and languages, all of these like really informed me to kind of really think very expansively about life. And it definitely ignited in me this ongoing desire to keep reaching out to different communities. So if I wasn't an artist, I would probably be an anthropologist. Like, I'm very interested in different cultures. Yeah, so that's clearly a big part of the project. My mother and 2 grandmothers are all very skilled stitchers, not professionally, but as hobbyists. My mum used to make a lot of our own clothes. So I was very used to seeing women of my family having this kind of quiet, meditative time with a needle and thread. And I was very enthralled by that. So it was only a matter of time before I picked up a needle and thread myself. And actually, I was taught to embroider properly, formally, whilst living in Nigeria. I had this craft class I used to go to, and it was this wonderful Indian teacher, and we made floral cushion covers. I still have it, actually. And yeah, that was it. I just loved it, and I ran with it. So I studied. Art was always my thing. Apparently, I announced to my parents at age 4 that I'm going to be an artist, and really nothing else kind of came close. And I was all right at school, but my focus was always art, a little bit of sport, but always art. I then went on to study textiles for a BA, and then I did an MA in visual language and performance. Following that, I went traveling around Sri Lanka and India for many, many months, and was completely like blown away by the textiles, particularly the embroidery in India. And I connected for the first time with Lambani women and the Lambani embroidery that I'm now completely, or have been now, very, very fascinated with ever since. So the Lambani are a nomadic tribe, originally came from Afghanistan, and they came to India and settled in various different places. And I've connected with them twice now, once way back when I was traveling, and then once last year down in Karnataka. And these interactions, even though we couldn't share a common language, there was this shared act and appreciation and mutual focus, I guess you could say, of embroidery, which I found profound. And yeah, I learned a lot on that trip. I think I even made a jacket, and it definitely kind of inspired the red dress, this kind of communication without words, this, through embroidery. When I came back to the UK, I then really went for it as a fine artist living in London for I think it was about 10 years I was there. All my work was rooted in textiles, and I explored issues of identity, culture, and voice, predominantly expressed through garments in various ways. And I made lots of films, installations, sculptural pieces, and performance. So this is a little very short animation I'll just show you. I was very interested at this point, Estelam, in the relationship between a woman and her dress and a dress, and how it can be both, in some instances, quite oppressive and containing, body sculpting, modifying, but it can also be very uplifting and empowering. So yeah, I'll just show you this. It's only about a minute long. I made this just as I was finishing my MA. So this piece was about the little black dress that had had enough. It was tired of being paraded around and performed at various events, and it wanted to get its own back on the wearer. On the left here, we have Emelan. So this was originally created for a big Mario Testino exhibition in a big gallery in London. And basically, I wanted to create a piece of work that would fill the whole gallery space, which it did. You're seeing it here on a beach in Dubai, which is quite random. But yeah, you can see the expanse of it here. So it's about 16 meters in diameter. And I would wear the dress and be asleep in the middle. And the fabric was all kind of underneath layered with duvets. So it was very squishy. So it was pulling the audience into the work, whether they liked it or not. And there'd be some that would kind of skirt around the edges, not wanting to go anywhere near me. And others that had no problem rolling around in the fabric, stepping right over me and all these kind of things. This is very typical of the kind of work that I used to do. There'd be quite an initial strong visual, often with color as well. And then I'd be really kind of exploring issues of oppression and containment, vulnerability, male gaze, all these kind of things. On the right here, this was a dress that was made, actually a wedding dress for someone, and it was all based on the Lady of Shalott. And I had this idea, like, wouldn't it be great to try and kind of think about the death space, because, you know, she dies at the end of it. And it was incredible. I happened to meet this photographer who happened to be shooting the big Range Rover ad in Pinewood Studios in the underwater James Bond tank. Like, you couldn't write it. So he said, look, I reckon I could give you an hour at the end of the shoot. Come down next Friday. Let's see what we can do. So yeah, I turned up with the lady it was for, Juliet, and the dress. And so yeah, I had this like £20,000 like crew staff tank lighting situation at my disposal for an hour. It's amazing. So you can see this beautiful image just here. This was another costume, Phaedra. This was for an operatic performance. It was a 15-minute performance at a big festival in Ireland. My brief was to create a dress that was 15 foot high, that would slowly revolve and change state over the performance to mirror Phaedra, the protagonist's descent. So basically I could have created, with the help of an engineer, a steel crinoline, which was mounted onto a revolving platform. It was then all wired up with irrigation tubes, literally something you'd buy in a garden centre, and with a hose pipe attached to a tap. And I've been working with this solufleece fabric, which is often used in embroidery. It's a cellulose-based fibre that just dissolves in water. So the idea was to create this top layer that was quite froofy and puffy, and then slowly degrade it subtly over the performance. So you can see here, this is two stills. And then this is to show you afterwards. All the audience had left the space. The opera singer Ruby Philogene had to be cherry picked in and out of the dress. And you can see me up there on the side, just running up and down, trying to fix things. But she also was wired up with irrigation tubes as well because of the water melting. So she had quite a task, but she saw it all as performance art and just ran with it. So the red dress, for 2009, one of the curators of the Art Dubai Fair saw the big blue dress and asked if I could bring it out to exhibit. And they said, look, we've got some funding for you to create a new piece of work. It can be anything you want. So that does not happen very much in the art world at all. Usually you're thinking of a piece of work and you plan it and you have a proposal, and then it could take you months or even years to try and get funding. So it literally landed on my lap, and I went to a cafe and I just sketched it right on out. All the ideas and intentions I've already shared with you. As you can see, the presentation here is quite different to how you see the red dress now. I used to wear the dress and stitch onto the fabric, shut inside a Perspex cube for a 4-hour period of time. So I had to have someone with a screwdriver within 10 meters of me in case there was a fire, because I literally was completely shut in. So this is very much kind of installation performance art. This is coming from the gallery environment that I was used to showing and the type of work that I was doing up until that point. And here is the first performance in Art Dubai. So although there was only about 4 pieces of embroidery on the dress, the embroidery, when I look at this now, like, it's not really a focus. I'm far more fixated at the moment looking at the cube. So it was a different piece of work. It was very, very kind of unsubtly talking about oppression of women and male gaze and all these kind of things. But this is how the dress began. So I must share information on my amazing collaborator, Gail Faulkner, who lives in Derby, and she is a beautiful wedding dress couturier maker. I met her when I was in London, and she's helped me on quite a few of my projects. And we've become friends over the years, and she's taught me everything really that I know about fashion and dresses and dressmaking. So she helped me create the initial dress, and then she popped down halfway through, just after halfway through, and then she came down again to help me finish the dress and put a lining in 2023. So yeah, the red dress would definitely not be what it is without Gail's incredible expertise and vision. This is lovely. The dress and I were in Cologne, Germany for an exhibition, and the curator flew Gail out to be a part of the exhibition, which was so lovely. So the commissions themselves, the brief to all of the embroiderers was purposely kept very, very loose. It was to create an embroidery that in some way articulates an element of the embroiderer's identity and the culture that they were from. I didn't want to be too prescriptive, and certainly didn't want to be talking about color choices and manage the motifs in any way. I really wanted it to be a complete free, palette to each of the artists to use their voice and to share what they wanted to share. Sometimes people would say, oh, but can you just give me a small idea? And I was like, well, no, really just what it is that you want to say. Imagine if you're trying to tell the world something, like, what would you like to tell it? And then I would say, look, just be aware it's going on red. That's the only thing I will say. So if you use red, it's not going to be able to be seen. The size of the panel and the commission fee was fixed before the panel was sent, and in some cases hand delivered to the embroiderer. The artists all use their own threads, which I love. It gives such a beautiful diversity to the garment. You've got everything from organically dyed cotton to sequins to Nigerian fabric to shells. It's a paper, metallic, heavy threads, wool, everything. And the artists were all asked to document as much as possible the process and to write me a little something about what they've created and why. But obviously I wasn't there in the country. The panel was sent in the post. So what came back was pretty varied. Some of the embroiderers really love, to be shared and their work to be out in the world. And they had lots to say and lots of beautiful text and context to really understand the work. Others are much more private. So yeah, you'll see a real variety in the embroiderers too. So the first few years, this is how the project was displayed, as it were. So bearing in mind, there's not that much embroidery at this point, and it's still in the cube, and it's still, being shown in galleries. So this big picture here is at the Royal Academy in London. The top right is the Gallery Mag in Paris, and then the bottom right is the Premier Bacellina Award in Magnago in Italy. And then this is the last time that I ever wore the dress publicly in this way, and that it was ever performed inside a cube. I'd been feeling increasingly uncomfortable with the presentation, and realized very strongly that it was no longer my piece of work. It was so richly and powerfully embroidered now by so many incredible artists that it felt wrong, and it felt distracting having a human in it. And also, I didn't want to focus on the containment and oppression anymore. I wanted to focus much more on women's strength and resilience and empowerment. So from then on, the dress has always been exhibited very simply on a mannequin, so that the embroideries and the embroiderers' stories can always remain center stage. And then that's when all the magic began to happen, because then I just tried to get the dress out into the world. So really not that fussed about art galleries anymore, and far more interested in getting the dress out to communities, to groups, to create events and situations that would help empower, give opportunities for sharing of voice, to shine a light on important issues, and just really just get the dress out there. So this was an impromptu embroidery circle in Zenaida Aguilar, one of the embroiderers, on the dress in her kitchen. And it was a beautiful moment. We had two translators in the room, one from Tzotzil to Spanish, one from Spanish to English. But actually, we didn't really even speak that much. It was just all through this shared love embroidery and laughter and music, and yeah, just knowing what it was like to be a woman, really, all in that space together. So around this time, I also needed to really kind of come to terms with identity, race, and vulnerable voices, and own my position as a middle-class white woman that was working with vulnerable communities and groups from low-income countries, and very aware that for some, understandably, this is a very triggering dynamic, and can be reminiscent of oppressive power dynamics relating to colonialism and cultural appropriation. So like I said before, even though I don't really feel like I'm particularly English or belong to any culture or country, clearly I've been born into a life that has allowed me a huge amount of mobility and access to funding eventually, and education and all these things. So yeah, it was a bit of a time of reckoning. This is before I had a website, and I had people writing to me assuming things, like that the big embroiderers were not paid. And I realized, no, I'm going to carry on, but I just need to be completely transparent at all levels, and really kind of use my privileges and opportunities to create this platform to support and help those that haven't had, that experience, and get their stories out into the world. So it was a very, very important time. So this is in 2022. You can see me there with Charmin, who you saw at the beginning. This was in Swansea, with the Swansea Women's Asylum and Refugee Support Group, who support women from all over the world. I can see here, yeah, women from Namibia, Nigeria, Turkey, Hong Kong, China. It was a beautiful day. The women all came, and we all sat and stitched together, very joyful. And although that these women are clearly going through, immense challenges with displacement and uncertainty, for that day at least, we all came together and had a lot of fun. Inclusivity is a very, very important part of the project, and I was delighted to be invited to deliver a talk at the Flint Festival in Bristol for femme, lesbian, intersex, non-binary, and trans. Excuse me. It was an event in collaboration with the White Ribbon Alliance, as they launched their gender-based their campaign against gender-based violence. So very, very important. Was thrilled to be a part of it. And at the same time, I connected with Justin Haynes and Caroline Phillips, a married couple, both non-binary, who created the panel there that you can see, all about their journeys of identity and hope. Politics has kind of unexpectedly come into the project. Not an area or I don't really have any experience of politics, to be honest. But I was increasingly aware that the dress was, beginning to make some pretty important, supporting a lot of very important initiatives, and I was beginning to stand the dress with a lot of different people and activists. And so I was entering this kind of new territory. And then I was invited to bring the dress to a PACE session at the Council of Europe, which was on equality and non-discrimination. And we were literally right outside the main auditorium for that week. So there were it's a vast space. And so, presidents, prime ministers, and politicians and delegates, and, are all coming from all over the world at various times of the year. But for this one, it was particularly about equality and non-discrimination. So there was lots of discussion about that time Ukraine, Iran, lots on gender-based violence. So all very, very relevant to the dress. And I was very uplifted to have a conversation with someone towards the end of the week who said something along the lines of how just looking at the dress and experiencing the dress for kind of a few seconds even was almost akin to what had been going on in that auditorium for that week, and just this, sometimes you just need to feel that words are important, of course they are, but something the dress now can provide is this incredible energy of resilience and strength and, stories of trauma and sadness, but also hope and resilience and comfort and strength and unity. And I think it was very well received. And I was really uplifted, as I said, just about how the dress was recognized and connected with, from all these politicians from all over the world. Standing in solidarity continues to be a very important part of the project. Had 2 trips connecting with survivors of conflict-related sexual violence in Kosovo and in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Whilst in Kosovo, the time I went to see also Saranda, who you saw at the beginning, I heard of a memorial called Heroinat, which honours the 20,000 women that are known to have been raped during the war with Serbia. The monument is the head of a woman, and it is constructed out of 20,000 metal pins. You can see the small image just there. And each of the pins has the head of a woman on the pin. So I heard of this memorial, and although my heart just broke, I said, I have to get there, and I have to get there with the dress. We need to get a picture, and I need to share this because I don't think people know enough about it. So this picture was taken and I put it on social media, and it was hugely responded to and shared. And a lot of people were saying, I had no idea this happened, and why were we not informed? And yeah, so it was a very important picture. And I think actually initiated Saranda Babiecki's invitation to come to Parliament. On the right, this is a beautiful embroidery circle that was held in Bosnia and Herzegovina with 15 survivors who were about to open an exhibition called Speaking Out, which the dress was a part of. It was co-curated, but also dedicated to these women who 30 years after the war with Serbia were finally getting to tell their stories of what had happened to them, often as children. It was a really epically powerful experience for everyone. And for me as a witness to see this process and the resilience and strength of those women, I will never forget it, ever. Access. So this has been a really fun part of the project. I'm really keen to not have any borders or boundaries within any element of the Red Dress project. So have connected with various charities and groups with the help of art therapists, BLCL interpreters, to help me find ways to deliver the red dress in different ways. So on the left here, you can see this was a lovely event with Deaf Plus in Bath, where all the rules of not touching the dress just went out the window, when a community of visually impaired individuals were able to hold and touch the dress. This was with a lady who used to be a fashion designer. And as she traced and followed the seams and the embroidery stitches of the dress, I was able to tell her the colours and who had stitched it and why. And it was very poignant. On the right here, this is at Sense in Birmingham. At the top, you'll see this is a presentation of the dress to a group of individuals. The lady, she's a teenager, is standing there wearing what looks like a rucksack, and it's called a sub pack. And it turns vibrations of sound. It turns sound, into vibrations. So I was playing a piece of music, Bedouin music, that you'll hear in a bit, which saw some of the embroiderers dancing around the dress in Egypt. And this young lady was able to feel the vibrations of the song she couldn't hear it, but she could feel it. So that was extraordinary. And then at the bottom there was a workshop with those with pretty complex needs and their carers, just kind of investigating embroidery and thread and yarn and making pattern and color, and it was really lovely. And then the digital red dress, which is a real gift. It was created by Bath Spa University by Dr. Coral Manton, who is the head of creative computing. And it kind of landed on my lap, really. They were interested to create a 3D version of the dress. And they took many thousands of pictures and then created this incredible, matrix type web situation. And then, as you can see, the digital red dress. So you can interact with this dress, you can move in and out, you can spin her around, you can even go inside the dress. And one of the next projects I'll be working on is the digital embroidery archive. So that will be all the information and catalogued on the whole dress, every stitch, every embroiderer, which will eventually be linked to this. So you'll be able to interact with this digital version and find out all about the embroideries whilst looking at the dress in exhibition. And then another really big, fantastic part of the last 5 years has been the museum exhibitions, which of course just create huge reach. Often they last for kind of 3 or 4 months, so it can really make an impact. And every single venue has reported at least doubled, but usually tripled, sometimes record numbers of audience to see the red dress. The curators are always staggered by how many people come and see her. Sometimes you get repeat visitors as well. But I think what's great about when the dress is still for a bit, even with woven, a month is a really good amount of time, because people can come back and see her a few times and they can tell their friends, and it just becomes this really kind of exciting and energized situation for her. So it's been brilliant. And this is the picture in one of the museums in America. She was on a tour out there on the East Coast for a year. So questions I'm often asked about the dress. Why did I choose the color red? So very simply, because you can't ignore red. It's very, isn't it? It's like it's stop and it's danger and it's love and it's passion and it's anger and it's rage and it's blood and it's women's cycles and it's all of these things. It's a very primal, raw color, and I felt that it was the best color to articulate the feminine, predominantly feminine voice. How did I find the embroiderers? So I had a really good network from being an artist in London for 10 years. I also tutored at the Royal School of Needlework for a little while, both of which were pretty useful. But actually, by far the most helpful were my parents, because we'd traveled to so many different countries. They had such a huge network of friends and contacts all over the world. So it was just a huge amount of emails and messages kind of going out. Many of them never came back. And sometimes it would take years to actually bring one to fruition. But what was really beautiful is after maybe 3 or maybe 4 or 5 years, people then began to approach me and ask if they could be involved or if their charity could be involved. And then I just began to trust that the right people were coming in at just the right time, and just, let it flow, really. Did I visit all the countries involved to commission the embroidery? Sadly, there was no money coming into the project until 2020. I was given, apart from one bit of funding I was given, to go to Egypt. But otherwise, no, it was a panel sent in the post. But my intention now is to visit all of the commissioned embroiderers so they can have their moment with the dress, exhibiting their work around the outsides in their chosen venue in their country. And I'm about halfway through, so it probably will take many more years to reach the full list. Although there are challenges at the moment with obviously getting to Ukraine, Russia, and Iran. So we'll have to see about that, and Afghanistan. Which is my favorite panel? I could never answer that. That's like, for me, having to choose my favorite child. I love all of the embroidery. I'm connected to it all, and I know the embroiderers and their stories. I could never choose. What I will say is that I love the way that the work all speaks to each other and has become this conversation. It didn't always look like that. It actually took until about 2020, when the final iteration of the skirt was set, because I've taken the skirt to pieces 4 times and reconstructed it. Once it was set in the final configuration that you see now, then people could work directly onto it. So what was really lovely is the gaps could be filled a little bit, but even more beautiful was that people could respond to what was already there. So you get these very poignant conversations happening. And then who made the trim around the edge of the skirt? So I bought a roll of burgundy dupion, silk dupion fabric from a textile fair in Paris, 50 meters. And they had the facility to take it to their workshop to have a layer of machine embroidery put on and to put an edging onto the edge of the fabric. So they gave me this whole book of patterns and edges and everything, and I just chose what I did. And so when I got the fabric back, I just cut off the whole scalloped edge, put it to one side. And once this skirt was constructed, then the trim went on afterwards. So the embroiderers themselves, there are a total of 367 women and girls. 60% of those are vulnerable. 11 men and boys and 2 non-binary artists. So there are 2 tiers of embroiderer. There are the commissioned embroiderers, of which there are 141. So these embroiderers were paid for their work. There was a whole formal process of connecting and trust and organizing, and they had their own panel. So they were paid for their work, and they receive an annual donation every December from proceeds coming in from exhibiting the dress and merchandise. And they can sell their work through the Red Dress Folksy shop, which is really lovely. I think as long as the dress is out there doing her thing, then they need to be out there with her and compensated. The rest of the embroidery, so generally very small motifs, which are peppered around the outside of the skirt, were added by a very enthusiastic audience at various drop-in events and exhibitions. So here's the world map. I'm just going to have a sip of water. So you can see the reach there. And it would be lovely to share all of the embroiderers with you, but obviously time is not going to allow that. But here are a few. This is a wonderful group called Aproaid in Rwanda. 6 of the women, Annunziata, Dancilla, Donata, Dorothy, Rose, and Esperance, all came together to create the panel for the red dress, which they call From Darkness to Light. And I remember receiving this panel in the post, and I had to sit down because I felt like I'd just been punched in the stomach when I was holding this in my hands. It depicts the horrors of war in the center. You see a little child under a machete being wielded by a man. The circles are tight and black, and you see a river filled with blood, and you see a tree on fire. However, the circles become more expansive and they turn into color and finally into a radiant sun. And I still am so touched by the women's trust and just the rawness and the authenticity of this work. There's Annunziata on the left there. It's also so incredible to see that healing journey. So the group of women, Aproaid, are widows of war. And they are supported by an incredible initiative called Kirstie, which also supports women in DR Congo. Kirstie creates safe spaces for the women to come, and they're taught fine needlework, which for Kirstie's linens, they have like an interiors label. So the women then receive regular employment. They're also given loans to buy their own houses. So they have complete independence, because very sadly, widows are not deemed culturally acceptable within Rwanda and DR Congo. So there's awful stories of how they're ostracized, not only from their own communities, but even from their own families, just because of that stigma. So what these women now have is empowerment and independence, but they also have each other. And that's when the real healing can happen. And you can see, clearly with this embroidery that is actually happening. Lovely Tame from Vietnam. She's from a mountainous village called Tafin. This was the longest time ever taken on a panel, probably ever in the history of time. This was commissioned in 2014, and it arrived 7.5 years later back to me. Tame was very intimidated by the fabric. So in In Vietnam, you can see the beautiful jacket she's wearing there, indigo dyed, kind of like a loose weave, cottony canvas type fabric. So it's counted stitch work that they do, which is using the holes between the warp and the weft to then create their very formal, what's the word, geometric patterns. So when Tamé saw the fabric, she's like, I can't even see the holes in this. Like, how am I going to do my stitching? So she put it to one side, and it took the pandemic and her not being able to work for her to then say, okay, right, I'll try the red dress panel. And it's beautiful. She had to just go freestyle onto it. But yeah, it's gorgeous. This was a very powerful embroidery circle with refugees from Ukraine in Warsaw in Poland at a gallery called Galeria Salon Academy for an exhibition called Traces of Sisterhood, which brought together international artists all working on themes of empowerment, social justice, women's rights. So I was very, very excited that the dress could be a part of it. And just before we flew out, the curator messaged to say, would you like to connect with a group of women from Ukraine? We could have a workshop and they could stitch onto the dress. How would you feel about that? And I said, yeah, definitely. I'd love that. And I was a little bit apprehensive about how I would hold the space. This was September after the war began in, I think it was March, wasn't it? So it was very fresh. And a lot of these women had just arrived in Poland. And obviously they were still, dealing with huge amounts of trauma and loss and displacement. But as soon as they walked in and saw the dress, and as soon as I began to explain the different stories and voices, they just were smiling and beaming. And it was a very uplifting few days, really. There was talk of the war, of course there was, but it was from such a resilient, kind of positive place. And they would often sing. They would sing traditional Ukrainian songs as a way of connecting with each other, of course, but also to stand shoulder to shoulder with their country. And to those of us around the outside witnessing this, it was very emotional. Have a little video to show you in a second. The women all decided to stitch in yellow. They said, come on, let's be positive. Let's just stitch in yellow. Let's be happy. So yeah, Nadia and Natalia here stitched this sunflower. And then at the last moment, they put that little blue petal in for the flag. And here's a bit of the singing. And then to Sinai, this is the largest panel on the dress, the largest commission. It was a 4 by 2 meter piece of fabric. This was the commission I got to go out and meet the embroiderers. I'd managed to get some private funding just landed in my lap. So it was so incredible to be able to go and meet this community. The lady next to me in the leopard print headscarf is Salima Gabali. She is the founder of Fancina, which is a social enterprise that supports between 400 and 500 women living in poverty in and around St. Catherine's in the Sinai Desert. She's an incredible woman, and she has all these materials, and she has a big 4x4, and she just literally drives from village to village, all up through the mountains to deliver materials, give the brief, and then collect a few weeks later. So this panel, 50 women worked on this panel for 1 month. I was there for maybe 5 days. I didn't get to meet the embroiderers, but I got to spend time with Salima and her family in her house. What you can see here with that big panel, this is what I was mentioning earlier with the machined base layer of gold that was put on in Paris. So yeah, this was like an initial covering just to get the project started off, really, because a 50-meter roll of fabric is a bit daunting. So I was like, well, I'll just get some of it machined at the beginning, and then that can add some texture. On the left here, you have Farana, who was Salima's mother, and she was looking at the bodice. So I left the bodice and that panel of fabric in Sinai and headed back with a very meticulously organized chain of bringing it back. I think once it was finished, it was driven to Cairo, given to a businessman, very trusted, who then flew it back on the plane. and then met me in London for lunch and handed over the bag. It was brilliant. But yeah, that was very rare that kind of, I wouldn't normally leave the dress somewhere like that. But yeah, there was lots of trust and yeah, still is. So here you can see some of the beautiful embroidery. They chose to trace the existing layer from Paris with their own colors and beads and motifs. So they're very inspired by natural flora and fauna in and around the desert, which is pretty limited, but you've got like rosemary and thyme flowers, suns and moons. So it's it's Bedouin embroidery, lots of beads as well. And you'll recognize on the left there the beautiful big mandala type motif, which is on one of the dress sleeves and also on the skirt. They call it bride's fingers, and apparently a bride to be will stitch this motif. I guess it's for good luck and good fortune. They had it quite small on the dress, and I said, can you just do some massive ones, because they're just so extraordinary. I love that they're so perfectly imperfect. They don't use rulers. You know, it's all just done very freehand and kind of curved, and it's lovely. And then I was very blessed 7 years later to go back to St. Catherine's in Sinai to show the women the finished dress. I really wanted to honor and celebrate the 50 women that had worked on the dress, managed to get some funding. So we had a big celebration in Salima's veranda, big outside veranda in the middle of the desert. The dress was on a mannequin. The women walked in all in black burqas, and they were a bit apprehensive to start with, not really knowing how to respond. But as soon as I began to explain the stitches and the stories, they became very, very animated. So Bedouin culture is such that women don't like to have their faces photographed. So there's barely any documentation of this big event, although Rahma Ahmed did agree to wear the dress with a burqa. So this is just taken on my phone. And as I took it, all the like 49 women just ran behind me. They didn't want to be in the picture. And then this happened. And then a day or so later, I traveled with Salima and four of the embroiderers to Cairo, and we took part in this very swanky big do at the British Embassy. It was the Egyptian Fashion Awards. The red dress was given central space. Then it was surrounded in all the atriums by all the finalists of the Egyptian Fashion Awards. But it was brilliant. It was a real contrast. So it was filled with TV cameras and reporters and photographers and flashlights. And for me, it was a big contrast. I mean, I cannot imagine what it was like for the embroiderers. But it was absolutely brilliant. Salima gave a great speech after I did. And then the embroiderers were brought onto the stage, and the whole room erupted into a big standing ovation and applause. And it was brilliant because Fancina has now been kind of amplified, propelled. It's been, yeah, its voice is now far and wide. And I really realized that more and more, I really hope that the dress and I can do this for the embroiderers, to kind of create a platform to uplift them and their incredible work. So the future of the dress is to continue to share the story of the red dress and its embroiderers across the globe, with an ongoing aim of being accessible to all. So museum exhibitions will continue, also presentations like this, outreach events and online engagement, and also workshops to take the completed red dress to visit all the commissioned embroiderers so they can have their moment. They can exhibit their work alongside the dress in their chosen venue in their own country, as well as continuing to try and raise as much money as I can through exhibition fees and through selling their work through the Folksy shop and also through merchandise. So the book has just been released, which is brilliant, but there's still some more documentation and preservation I need to do before I can relax. So the book's now out. The digital embroidery archive is the next step, hopefully with a university to help back me up. And that will, as I said, align with the digital red dress to create this long-lasting archive and catalogue of the entire dress stitch by stitch. And then, of course, the film. So there's 3 short documentary films already. One of them, the one in Mexico, is with the dress woven in Oakwell Hall. Then there's now nearly 200 hours of footage, which has been collected from the last 4 or 5 years. And the plan is to do a big edit in 2027, 28 with the same filmmakers that did the exhibition film in Mexico, because they're absolutely brilliant, Black Bark Films. There's just a few more trips that I need to, I really want to be in the film, for instance, Rwanda next year, and hopefully Vietnam. Wherever possible, I'm keen to promote and support other initiatives supporting the empowerment and rights of women. And then very excitingly, with the completion of the red dress, I've now launched the Calico Garment Initiative, which began as just a dress, a simplified version of the dress. It now also involves a cloak, so it can be for any gender, any age. And it basically is taking the ripples of the red dress and helping to initiate new community collaborations around the world. So here are a few of them. There's currently, I think there's 11 in process. This is from the US tour. The 3 museums that exhibited the dress all did a calico garment as part of the exhibition. So by the time the dress and I arrived, for the second 2, the dress was already completed. For the first one in Vermont, it was half done, and they had workshops to work onto the dress as part of the exhibition with the red dress. You can see how different they are, and it's the same pattern, the same dress, but each is interpreted so differently. The one on the third one there, the Massachusetts one, I think it was nearly 300 people worked on that in 3 months. So phenomenal. And what you see is either the museum, there's an artist within the museum, a community artist, or a stitch group outside of the museum will collaborate. That you really need a network of people who can know what they're doing and work with such vast quantities of stitch. But they're absolutely glorious. You can see the cloak just on the right there. Here are some snaps from the top left. There is Vermont, community in Vermont working on the dress. The middle picture at the top there is in Wales. Then down below, you've got 2 images from India. You can see the list there on the right of the different countries and places involved. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 11. Yeah. So if anyone out there is interested in initiating a calico garment, and it could be you're part of a group, a stitch group, or a community, a school, it could be anything. Initially, it was given to the museums, but now I've realized it doesn't need to be a museum. It's just, yeah, any group with a passion, to come together and get things done. And this was lovely. This is the last day of the red dress exhibition in Massachusetts. The 3 calico dresses from the US were brought together with the dress. So we got this lovely image of the red dress and her sister dresses. The plan is in 2029, it's almost confirmed, there'll be an exhibition of the red dress with all the calico garments created in this same museum in Massachusetts. So I'm hoping that there could be, 2025 garments and the red dress. And it will probably be one of the last exhibitions before the red dress comes to a standstill and retires. So the red dress book, which has been such an exciting development, was released, it's not even a month ago yet. It was in the pipeline for so long. So many people had asked me, oh my God, please make a book. We need a book. And I was like, yeah, I'd really love to, but it's quite a process. And also it was finding the right publisher. So I didn't have much luck at all, and then suddenly found out about Quickthorn, which is based in Stroud in the UK, who specialise or focus on books all centred around craft and well-being. So I was like, well, that's an alignment. And every book is ethical, sustainable. It's all printed in the UK. It's fully compostable. Like everything is just exactly what I would want in a book. And so, yeah, the book is now out. It was an absolute privilege and pleasure to create it. I had an amazing co-writer, editor, Emma Bovell. Publisher Katie Bevan is wonderful, incredible designer. So I managed to raise, I think it was £12,500 through a crowdfunder to bring in the extra elements for the book that I really, really wanted, like bringing Mark, who does all my design, to be able to design it, and also be able to commission some of people involved in the greater project to write essays on particular themes that the red dress brings up for people. So there's a chapter on finding voice, and there's a chapter on it's like feminist issues and healing through embroidery. And it's just hopefully kind of opening up a bit into a bit more. And just like with the red dress, it is a complete conversation and dialogue of so many different voices. So I have one chapter that's just my own. And the rest of the book is all other people's stories and opinions and perspectives. So I really wanted that to echo, just like the dress. Here's Katie, the publisher, and I a few weeks ago. And the other thing to say is that, yeah, proceeds of all the royalties will go back to the red dress artisans as well. So it's available as a soft cover, which is what Katie's holding, and then a hard cover, which is what I'm holding. Oh, I've done that one. So just to finish with ongoing gratitude, which is a massive, massive part of the project, because it really is it's so much more than me, and I know that I'm kind of at the center of it, but it would not be possible without the hundreds and thousands of people out there who helped me do this work. So particularly to the 380 artisans, without whose stories and stitches the red dress would not be what it is today, what she would be today. There are also, I reckon, about 165 different commission and exhibition fixers and coordinators. So between me and a curator, me and a journalist, me and a venue, there could be a chain of 4 or 5 different people, and it could take years to come to fruition. And I'm always really grateful, but also astounded by how willing people are to help. People really want to help. I get so many emails with suggestions and ideas and connections. And it really is this incredible web of connection now around the world. There are currently 8 supporting charities and social enterprises involved. I think it's about 37 translators, 3 BSL interpreters, and 1 arts therapist involved. 27 museum, gallery, exhibiting venues so far, with another 12 booked for the next few years. Funding, yeah, that's a tricky one. So I've been very blessed to get some private donations along the way. Otherwise, grants from the British Council, 3 British embassies, the Arts Council Lottery Fund, Premier Bachelina Award, Contemporary Middle East, 3 US museums, and very blessed to have had the support of 736 individuals via 3 crowdfunding campaigns. So it is what I spend the majority of my time doing, is trying to raise money, which is a bit tedious, but it's necessary. And it's actually brilliant to be connecting with different institutions and places, because obviously it does bring a richness and a whole new, community, each time that you do so. Huge thanks to all the journalists, writers, and bloggers that have helped share the story around the world. They really have given that reach. And it's most of the time I know when a story is coming out, and it's always a privilege to be asked to be interviewed. Sometimes I don't know, and that's interesting. And there was a very pivotal moment that happened in 2020 where this is actually the big launch I was alluding to earlier. Suddenly my inbox was just filled with emails, like ping, 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 for days. And I had no idea what was going on. It was museum requests, press requests. And I was like, what on earth is going on? And then a friend of mine tagged me in a post in Facebook, which was written on the red dress by a blogger called Attire's Mind. And it had gone viral. It was shared, I think it was like 70 or 80,000 times. So completely unbeknownst to me in any way. But that one post brought in like years worth of work and exhibitions and articles. So I said a massive thank you to him, and he was also delighted because he got like 20,000 new followers. And yeah, so we're still in touch, and it's beautiful, like how these things can happen and you're blessed to experience, but without any knowing. It was just very, very fortunate. And then last but not least, massive gratitude to my family and friends, and to the thousands of Red Dress audience who continue to support, inspire, pick me up. Yeah, just all the visions and those times where I don't know how to do something, and then it'll just come, something will just say, oh, try this. And I'm like, okay, cool, got it. So yeah, it really is like a global collaboration. And like Nat was saying at the beginning, like how am I described? I always say that I'm the creator of the Red Dress Project. It's definitely not all my work, but I guess I'm the creator of the project, which has become something so much more than I could ever have imagined. So yeah, I look forward very much to the next few years. And yeah, if you're interested in the project, please stay tuned to the website, social media channels, and let's see what the next few years bring. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. And yeah, if you have any questions, I'll just stop the, should I stop the share or leave the share?
If you can stop the share, that would
Stop
be,
the share.
and then you are pinned, so hopefully everybody can see you and hear you, and you can actually see other people as well. But we've
Yeah.
got quite a lot of questions and comments and a whole West Yorkshire project that I think I now need to manage. But that's fine. It's a challenge. It's all good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say thank you. Oh, I actually missed the talk on the launch day. So it's been so great to
Oh,
catch up on and everything that everybody else has been going, oh my God, this is amazing. This is fantastic. And I'm like, well, I know it from the website, but hearing it from you is absolutely incredible. And I think everybody will say that the passion and I think just a gratitude. There's a real sense of gratitude that comes across from you, which is absolutely fantastic, and just makes that project such an emotional project for everybody. And before everybody came into the room, I was saying how so many people who've come to Oakwell to see the dress have come out very emotionally moved. And that is not just because of the project and so many people being involved and the fact that every stitch tells a story. It's the passion that you've put into it that really moves people as well. So thank you so much for a start. I'm going to hand over to Emma if I can, and she has been filtering through and looking at the questions. So she's going to be asking you the questions from the chat. So, Emma.
Hi, Kirstie. Okay, so the first one is, can you tell us about the relationship you have with your role as artist, maker, craftsperson, collaborator, and any challenges this poses and any benefits?
yeah, that's a big question. So I feel like I've put my own personal practice on hold. So for the last 8 years, really, although I do little bits and bobs when I can, which is embroidery and painting. Um, it's all craft, art has been my entire life. Like I don't know anything different, really. It's been my world. It's what lights me up. Um, Through the project, I love that it's used as a modality of expression, but also connection. So I'm seeing it very actively used in that way. There have been challenges, definitely. So initially, when it was first created and it was more seen in galleries, there were a lot of people that were like, it's not fashion, it's not art. What is it? I don't understand it. No. And then there were a few that were like, brilliant, it's so unique. Yeah, let's definitely show you. So, I mean, I'm always bridging that art craft tension, which is pretty infuriating, if I'm honest. And even where we are now in this day and age, it is on the whole still perceived as craft, and it's not elevated to the status of fine art. Although there are definitely artists out there like Grace and Perry, and lots of other artists who are bringing craft and that back in, and he's done some fantastic tapestries, hasn't he? So it's there. It's an ongoing process, I think. And then in terms of the red dress, like I'm not really actively creating that much, certainly not now. I mean, I was stitching the dress, but that stopped 2 years ago. So my role now really is on my laptop predominantly, although I do get to have these incredible interactions with communities and exhibitions and audience and presentations and workshops. So I'm doing that. But a lot of the red dress work is me on my laptop, trying to get funding, archiving, cataloging, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think it's so the question, what was the seed of the question? How do I navigate all the different things?
Yeah, the relationship you have and all those different roles in your
Yeah.
life.
So I think it's constantly in flux and constantly needing to be balanced. I would also add into that being a mother. That's the other thing. Um, Single mother as well. So, and I'm full-time single mom. So that's a really big juggle for me. There have been times where it has felt so difficult, but actually I then began to realize, but it so informs the work. It really like it adds to it. It's not an easy project that's just landed with, ease and funding that I can go everywhere. And it's not, it's been really hard. But it's yeah. So I think in answer to summarize my long wafty answer, it is a constant juggle, never fixed, always evolving.
Thank you.
Mm.
Nice simple one now.
Yeah.
Where does the dress go next?
So we've got a bit of a pause over the summer. Lots of book events are happening. And then the next big exhibition is a 3-month one in Devon, so still in the UK, at Killerton House, which is a big National Trust house, from November to January. Otherwise, lots of little small presentations, private presentations to different groups, workshops, and then the book events. And then there's going to be the big celebratory 1-day exhibition and book launch in Bristol on the 29th of September, and it's during Sustainable Fashion Week. So it's going to be all amplified in that way as well. And it's at an incredible venue in Bristol. So if anyone happens to be around Bristol in September, please come. It'll be really fun. It's going to be lots of really meaningful interaction with charities. There's going to be a book talk, live music, lots of embroidery workshops. It's going to be, all happening. And then next year we're going off overseas again, lots. And then I think, all going well, she'll be in America for about 18 months in 2027. So yeah, exciting.
I think you did speak about this a bit in your talk, but somebody's asked about the frilly fringe around the bottom. So the ideas of the decisions and the work on that in particular.
So so the base layer is the Paris machined embroidery, and they put the scalloped on. And then all the additional embroidery was pretty much most of it. It was at exhibitions and events for volunteers who had like an hour to create a little motif. So as you see, like most of the dress is panels. And then as you get to the bottom, it's just a cacophony of beautiful, tiny little stitches and motifs. For instance, there was a 1-day event at the Royal School of Needlework where the entire school, plus some of the staff, so 54 individuals, worked on it over 6 hours. They had 6 at a time, 1-hour slots. It was like militant precision. So you'll see things like there's a gorgeous like cat head, there's a moth, there's a star constellation, there's ballet shoes, and you can see they're pretty accomplished. And then you'll see like tiny little stitches from little children. I took the dress in Kosovo to a mental health center where a group of women who were very highly medicated and could hardly hold the needle also stitched onto the dress, just a few stitches. So I am involved. In fact, I direct the curation of it. So I'm involved in all the placements, but I never direct what people are going to create. So I never know. Yeah, so it adds an element of surprise.
Another long one. How do you feel about the dress and its relationship with the participants in the war-torn countries?
It's so important. It's like a whole new level of importance, I think. So I'm thinking straight away of a lady from Iran who is remaining anonymous in the project. She is currently in the UK seeking asylum, and she's desperate to get back to Iran to stand with her women of the country, to make a stand and to fight against what's going on out there. She can't get back. And she was, when I met her, I would, without being too assuming too much, but she was in a depression, I would say. And I met her at an event, and she asked me at the end, please, can I stitch onto the dress? And I said, I would love you to. I would, I was kind of hoping that was going to happen. She just asked. And it just so happened that the dress was quiet for a month. So I just sent her a panel. She had the panel for a month over Christmas. And she was obsessively stitching this. First of all, unpicking some of the gold embroidery from Paris, and then stitching, and she was drawing and stitching. And I think it was her daughter told me and just said, thank you so much for giving her that project, because it's like she's managed to say her piece now. She feels like she's standing in solidarity with the women of her country, even though she can't be there, she's doing it through the dress. And she said, yeah, my mum's changed. She's just much happier. And the artisan has said to me, I feel like finally that I can make my stand through the dress. So sorry, again, I've waffled on. So for people like that embroiderer, it has become a whole new level of voice. So it's not just sharing a story, it's actively standing against something or standing with something that she believes very, very strongly. And I think with the other panels like Ukraine, Russia, Rwanda, DR Congo, all these countries involved in conflict, there is just this real need for just listen to what I've been through, just like you don't understand. Let me tell you what I've been through. It's a very powerful mode of communication. And I think just to have the experience of making it, and then for them to know that it's actively out there, being listened to. That's the important thing. It's one thing sharing, it's another thing actually being heard, isn't it? So yeah, and I'm very keen at all points to try and highlight and uplift and shine a light on all of these initiatives. I just hope that in the future, at some point, we can get the dress to these countries and they can have, the final conclusion of the cycle. It's been created in a place from a place of trauma, and actually, now they're kind of moving through this process of healing. And how wonderful would it be in 20 years' time to then, go to Ukraine and be like, yeah, this was made then.
And in that context, it sort of builds on what you're saying. Do you see the dress as a symbol of peace and community?
Yeah, I do. I do. And I'm delighted that that's the case. It was described to me once, which was so powerful and beautiful. I'll never forget it. Someone said, well, the red dress has become an icon of peace. And I was just like, oh my gosh, has it? Oh my goodness. Because for me, it's this project I did in my bedroom for 10 years. I still can't quite grasp that it's got this momentum. And yeah, I think it has. I think it has. And I think it's an uplifting example of what we can create when we come together in community rather than seeking personal gain and power. But yeah, someone asked me the other day in an interview, what's the word that you would say the red dress, vibrates to the world? And for me, it would be peace, unity and peace.
Thank you. And I think you did mention it after the question come in, but if you could just elaborate a little bit more about the men and boys involved.
Yeah, so 11 men and boys. Two of them are my sons, Bodhi and Sky. Sky stitched his first, he's done three. He stitched his first one when he was 6. It's a little plesiosaur dinosaur. There's also a very epically powerful gold lotus. You'll have seen it on the back of the dress. That was created by Alam Khan from an atelier in Mumbai in India. And then the rest of the embroideries are all added at various exhibitions and events. Apart from Justin, who is now non-binary, so no, let's not bring him into that. Yeah, they're all added at different events and exhibitions, and just really keen to have the voice. My father also did a piece on it. It was never set out to just be for women. It was just open to whoever came in and wanted to be involved. But obviously, in creating a dress, in most cases, I'm imagining that it would connect more with women than men. Not always, but it's a very powerful symbol of femininity, isn't it, a dress? But I love that there's men involved. I love that they've also got voices. And I purposefully, the designer I have and all the red dress website, books, everything is a man. Because I really wanted this idea of like how men can be ideally like this kind of container, to support the feminine voice. That was kind of the idea. So with so much feminine energy within the project, I was like, I really want to find a designer who's a man, but who gets it, who really gets it and can also have the skill to turn so much information and images and numbers, into a distilled and very concise and clear content, which is so yeah, I think it's predominantly female project, but yeah, it's essential also that the men and the non-binary individuals are also involved.
Thank you. And some tattoo love now. People are asking about
Ah,
your tattoos.
oh yeah.
Do they
Oh, I wish
relate
I
to
was
the
wearing
red
a
dress
different
at
top.
all? Or-
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got this one done. So it starts here and it's hand poked and it goes all the way. I'm not wearing a good top. It goes all the way around and then back. And it's basically the hem of the dress. So I got it done
Wow.
when the dress was completed, like a month after. So it's kind of like my honoring of the dress. Then this is my lunar symbols. And then I've got, yeah, that's me and my two sons. I've got quite a few more, but yeah, they're so addictive. That's the problem. The first one was a big deal, but now it's just, yeah, what can I get next?
Um, and then again, I think you did cover it, but just so that to remind people that the embroiderers do receive an ongoing income from the tours, and does that include the book?
Yes. So Yeah, the commissioned embroiderers, they were obviously paid initially, and sometimes commissions didn't happen because I couldn't afford them. So it was very much down to they would set the fee and I could see if I could afford the embroiderer, if that kind of makes sense. And so every year there's like a fund. So every year the commission embroiderers get a payout. So it's money. So it's income from the profits from merchandise, exhibitions, and now the book. But it's really sweet because a lot of the embroiderers, say from England, or those who are not vulnerable, have said, no, 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 I want to give my portion back to the project to share it amongst the other ladies, which is so lovely. So yeah, it's an ongoing commitment to them, and also they can sell their work through the shop. And yeah, I just want to make sure that they are honoured in all ways. Whilst the dress is out there being exhibited, they need to be compensated.
And somebody asked about the Folksy website and where to get any red dress merchandise, but is that all linked on your website?
Yeah, so if you go to the website, it's in shop. Yeah, red dress shop. So, but the book, no, your book, you have to go, you can go to the book section on the red dress website to get the link to Quickthorn to then buy the book. So Quickthorn are the publishers. So I'm not selling it directly. It's all through Quickthorn. You can get it on books.com and you can also get it on Amazon. But yeah, Quickthorn's the publisher.
I think there's a few left at Oakwell, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And some at Oakwell, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's all the questions. So thank you so much.
Oh, pleasure. Pleasure. It's been lovely to be here with you all.
So I've asked people to undo their cameras so we can see
Yeah, yeah.
there. So if you want to, can we all have a little wave? Oh, amazing. That makes me so happy. That is absolutely fantastic. I'm gonna have to do like a little, if everybody's happy, can I just do like a few little screenshots with my camera? If you don't want to, just pop your camera off. But I think this is such a lovely moment of bringing people together that that would be lovely. So I'm going to do that now. So turn your camera off now if you don't want to be a tiny little image on a phone shot. And because there's so many of you, I'm going to have to do a few of you. But that's amazing. Thank you so much. So all I'm going to say is thank you so much, Kirstie. From start to finish, it's been absolutely incredible to bring the red dress to West Yorkshire. There is so much love for the dress. It's just overwhelming. The emotional response has been absolutely fantastic. I do hope that those who haven't yet will use the next couple of weeks to get to Oakwell Hall. It's such an incredible setting, isn't it, Kirstie, in
Yeah.
terms of
Unique.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
really unique.
beautiful.
Very sacred. It feels sacred in there.
We were a little bit worried it was too much for the dress in terms of this kind of deep paneling and things like that, but I think it works really well.
Beautiful. Yeah, really nice.
Incredible. So thank you so much. Thank you for being incredibly generous in terms of working with you to bring the dress here, which has been absolutely brilliant. Your generosity of doing talks for us to get that message out about the red dress has been absolutely brilliant. We are sold out for the second run of books, to be honest, at Oakwell. So we need some more get
Brilliant.
in, but we have got postcards. So if you do
Yes, yes.
then you'll be able to pick up a little souvenir, definitely. We have had a few responses which have said, can we get in touch with you directly? Your information is on the website. That's how we got in touch with you.
Yep.
So people can get in touch with you directly. That's not a problem at all.
Yeah.
It would be lovely to know, as Woven, any projects that come out of the dress as it's been as part of the Woven Festival, because we love to find out if things happen. And already we've got so many projects that have started to come out of the red dress, which we are sharing with Kirstie every step of the way as well. So anything that happens that we hear about, we share with Kirstie as well. There is an abundance of people who want to do the Calico project as part of
Yeah.
so
Brilliant.
got another project, Emma. Really sorry. Hear from Thread Republic will probably help with that. Thank you, Kim. So yes, I do think there is a West Yorkshire Combined Authority application in the
Brilliant.
of which we could probably do something towards 2027.
Yeah.
Have that complete for the next festival, and then on display with you guys is 20.
Massachusetts. Yeah, perfect.
So that would work out perfectly. So yeah, thank you so much. It's been an absolute joy, an absolute pleasure to have the red dress. It honestly makes me well up every time we speak about it because it is just such an emotional thing to bring. So thank you, and thank you everybody for joining us tonight and just enjoying every story that comes from the red dress. It's absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Nat, for inviting me in the dress.
Our
Yeah,
pleasure. Absolute
been
pleasure.
awesome. Continues to be awesome.
Well, we'll keep sharing our stories as well, don't worry.
Yeah.
And if anybody else has any stories, whilst they pop off about their encounters with the red dress, just send us a line online on Instagram, Facebook, and just let us know how much you love the red dress, how you've appreciated the red dress, your stories of engaging with the red dress. We love to hear it, and I know Kirstie does too. So yeah, it's a lovely communication. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Got Jean who's got a raised hand. And now it's gone down, so it might have been a mistake.
Yeah.
So yes, if you all want to pop off and get your evening tea, thank you so much.